Aqui. Certo, galera, antes de começar, tenho duas coisas para dizer. Primeiro que eu testei ontem, né, a palestra e deu 30 minutos. E a segunda, talvez mais importante, é que como a Code incentiva muito o uso de inglês, eu vou tentar palestrar em inglês. E se vocês não entenderem, apenas me deem feedback, eu posso fazer essa mesma palestra semana que vem em português. Beleza?
Massa, certo. Isso aí.
Valeu. Começar. Well, hello guys, I'm Dmitry. I work with you as a backend developer, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about Crystal. This talk is meant in two parts. The first one is about theory, features, community, basically things that you see outside code. And the second part is about code. You see a lot of code, but the second part, you only need to know something. You don't need to know Ruby. You need to know object orientation, object-oriented language, and that's fine. Okay, theory. First, I see Slick as Ruby. It is in the site, the right, like the second name or the nickname of the language. And when you see people talking about performance, you will see people making comparisons with C and another compiled language. And this is why Forza C, for example, when you compile your code, your C code, the compiler send your code, your source code, go through a lot of validations, optimizations, and your final file, your final software, your binary code, right? Binary file, sorry. It will be independent from the compiler. You have only to run your software. You will not have to run your interpreter like Ruby or like Python or even Java, this kind of thing. And the second part of this phrase is like as Ruby. It is very, very similar to Ruby, but spoiler alert here, right? You will not get to take your Ruby code, Rails, Sinatra, any app, any big app, and you compile it, and out of the blue it will be faster. Sorry guys, it's not what the Crystal is meant. Okay, with a new language, this language is, I think it was born in 2011, and with a new language, we have a new stdlib, and you have a new technologies that you don't see very common, for example, C, Ruby, this thing. Auth2, for example, WebSockets, not sockets, right? And you have enum. You have also Markdown, I don't know, maybe for documentation. And the cool thing of the language is that it is self-hosted. I'm quite sure you all know what it is. It's what this means, but I will show you some examples of that. First of all, Crystal, you can see here, is 98% written in Crystal. Then Elixir, you have here, Elixir is 88% written in Elixir and 10% written in Erlang. So you have to deal with some Erlang code, right? And the same way, Ruby, it is 80% written in Ruby and 39% written in C. So you will have to deal with some C code. And I remember seeing any place, I'm not quite sure where, But I remember that Max, the creator of Ruby, he said that he's more likely a C developer than a Ruby developer because he maintained the interpreter and he has to deal with more C than Ruby. So the same way, the number for Python is the C close, 50, 57% in Python, 39% in C. And outside of language, we have this. People sell this like a Python library, SciPy. It is it is 52% in Python, 25% in Fortran, and 20% in C. This library is not fast as C, it is fast as Fortran, right? And I'm gonna talk about right now about community. Basically, I'm enrolled. I'm part in the Google groups, the Gitter chat, and I'm following since last 2 weeks ago, I guess, the commits. I started the project and I started to receive a lot of emails about the language. I got some cool things too, but I'm gonna talk only about the code, about the community. Okay, this first, this is my email is in the Google groups, and basically the first guy here is asking about having or not having a Ruby background. And this guy answered like they see themselves, the community, a part of the Ruby community. Of course, they interact. You know, there's no problem. There are no problem at all talking to Ruby's and this kind of thing. We are not kids, right? And the documentations is meant with no audience in mind. You and I've been reading the documentation, the Git book, the Git book, and I have to say that you need only some knowledge about object-oriented language. You don't have to know about Python, about Ruby, about anything. You have just know the concept, and you can dive into the language with no problem at all. And this guy here, he said that he is a Python and C++ programmer, and he was able to language easy. This is another example. This is a pull request, and this guy is trying to add Rubyism in the language to the language, and this is funny because this guy asked, why I didn't do Rubyism? I mean, why I didn't this method to those classes? He can understand, and he said, it is even a character longer than x equals 0. And here is another example of the community, how they see themselves. And his guy said that we don't want to copy ever Rubyism. For example, this part is really good. For example, we avoid aliases and prefer a single way to method to over something. And they add to the language, to the stdlib, only things that are real, how can I say, that they will need that thing. For example, maybe they will not add this Rubyism. And by the way, this pull request is still open. Okay, let's go to the second part. It is about code. I will show you some code. I have only 2 comparisons. I have 20 slides, more or less, and I have only 2 comparisons with Ruby, okay? This is the first one. I will right away compare with Ruby. This is this is a class. The top code is in Crystal, and the bottom code is in Ruby. You see that we have some little difference, I guess, little difference here. For example, the first one is property and getter instead of attr accessor and attr reader. We don't use symbols here, not neither here. Here is a symbol, here is a symbol. And I have to say, I still have to say that you are seeing here that I'm saying what type age is. And I'm not saying what type name is. Here is a trick. Name is a string, and I'm saying what its type in the initializer. So if I said I can set the type here or here, no problem. I only need to set once. And see that line, this line, I'm not writing this line. Why? Because the language itself, if you add an add here at the beginning, it already add this kind of code, to you, right? And here, you have to pay attention here. I am saying what type is born here. It is an int, and I'm saying because there are some times that the interpreter doesn't understand what is the type of the variable. For example, even if this method of integer only accepts another integer, I will have to say what type it is, and the compiler will run the validation through this code. Basically, we have more differences time now instead of day to day. And these last two lines, they are exactly the same. They are exactly the same for both of the languages. Okay. This is another, just the code I will compile with Ruby. And see, the first one is in Ruby. We use column, right? 2 points column here, and I'm quite sure that we use column here because it is a symbol. We have the map accept a symbol. I mean, this symbol accept the symbol, right? And because of that, we have to pass it as a symbol. And here in Crystal, see that I'm using a dot. I'm using a dot, and I can pass parameters to that method, right? And this third one is if that method were merged, and you see it's almost the same. I mean, I'd like to left you. This is like with a question. Do we really need that thing, that Rubism? I don't. I have no opinion about that. To me, doesn't matter. But think about it. Which one would you like? This second one or the third one? Just a minute. Sorry, guys. Okay. This is another example of type inference, and you see that here I have this variable is not. I'm not saying what type it is because I don't need to. For example, number one is an integer, right? And a string is a string. So the compiler will infer that this variable is what type is this variable? Okay, this line, this method type of, I guess the only difference between Ruby and this is Crystal, right? It is this line, the type of. the type of this method shows in completion time, I don't know actually, but it kind of shows you all the types that the variable can take. For example, this variable value can be either a int or a string, right? The first time I run this code, it is an int 32, and its value is 1. The second time that I run this code, it is a string, and the content is high, right? Okay, this is another type. This is another piece of code to show you the union type. For example, this method, what type, it accepts both a string or a int. And you can trying to write some validations inside this method for both a string or a number. And if I call it with a string, it will execute this line. If I call it with a number, it will execute this line, right? But what if I call with another type? Let's see. This happens. The code doesn't compile if you call it with another type. For example, I'm calling it with an array of number, and it doesn't compile. You can't even run the code. This is another example. I will show. Oh, this is an example of method overloading. See that I have this class and I have 3 methods, but the methods have the same name, string, question mark, right? But the first one accepts an string and return this content, another string. The second one accepts a number and returns another string. See that I'm not saying what type it is returning because I don't need to. This is a string. The compilers know what's the string. And this third method, it accepts an array of string and it returned either a int or a string. I have to say that if you pass an array of numbers, array of another kind of object, it will return an error like that one. It won't compile. Okay, and these are some examples. I call it with a string. Okay, I call it with a number that the message. I call it with an array of strings. And it executes this line, and I call it with an array of strings, and the code executes these lines. See that here return the line 11 return this number, and in the line 14 returns a string, right? This is another example of method overloading, a little more, how can I say, not tricky, but different. I'll show you. This is almost the same method, the same thing as before, but here I have a string. I'm saying that I'm returning a string. It's not prohibited to be explicit, right? And here I'm accepting a number and returning a string. Here in this method, see that I'm accepting a string or anything, and I will return a string. The other method, I'm accepting anything and a string, and it will call the method that accepts a string and anything. See, it's being right? And the last one will be called if you call with one argument and anything of any kind, of any type. Sorry. This is an example for these two new methods. I call with string and number, and we return one of them. I call with a number and string, and I will return. It will return the same content. So in resume, method overloading accept different types, different amount of parameters, and different returns. And when I say different returns, I'm talking about different returns, not a union type. Remember, I should just go back here. This is a return. If I'd like to return a int or a string, this is another return, is a union type, right? Okay. This is a real world software, real world piece of software. I used this in a toy project. This class, I define the type here of cards and initialize with if with it's empty, right? It is a hash of string as a key, has key, and card as a value. This method less than, right? Accept the card if accept the card, and then it executes this code. If I pass it with and I created another method less than to if I pass it new to do nothing, basically nothing. Yeah, nothing. This is another method. This is really cool. I created, by the way, private method are declared one. I have to place this key at the beginning of the method before the def, right? This is quite cool. This is cool. For example, if you have a private method that it is used by two methods, you can get that private method and put it close to the other methods that are using them. You don't have to create lines or levels of public key and private and protected method. The keyword protected exists in Crystal as well as in Ruby. And this method, first thing is that I don't have to say what type it is returning. The first empty question mark, it will return the return of this, the content equals an empty string. And the content, the return of equals is always a Boolean. So the return of this method is a Boolean. The return of the second the second method is also Boolean, because I'm saying that it is returning true, and true is a Boolean. The third method, the last one, is also returning a Boolean, and because false is a Boolean, and it's explicit that it is the compiler will see that it is a Boolean. The first method, I talked about it, sorry. The second method, it accepts a card. If I accept a card, it means that how can I say? I'm believing that card have its own validation. It have this method. For example, key is required in an instance of card, and if I get the card, I believe on that. I basically believe on the card, and it is always true. If I receive anything else, it is false. And I'm gonna talk about some optimizations right now. Oh, damn it. Sorry, the slide is wrong, quite wrong. Okay, symbols are optimized while compiling. They are stored like integers, and there are a table of symbols. This means that they are as fast as integers. You don't need to replace all your code with integers to be faster. And there is also a table for symbols, and as far as I know, it's only is only used when you call 2s of a symbol. Is basically almost the usage of the table is basically that, and you don't to repeat the number of each symbol. But there's a problem with symbols. I mean, kind of problem, because you can't convert a string to a symbol. Symbols are optimized while compiling. You can't get formation, a data from user, and convert it to symbol like in Ruby. And the nums are stored like integers as well, and they are like constants. I'll show you some examples of that. Basically, this code, it compiles. It compiles, it's crystal, right? And no problem with this code. It compiles, but it is wrong. This line is with a typo, and we would never work as expected. And this is the same code using a num. It doesn't compile because you have to define it. It is more lines, but it is more, how can I say, validation to your code, something like that. And if you make the same mistake as before with a typo, your code will not compile. You have to fix it before deploying it. And see that the compiler is saying that undefined constant color, column blues, right? It is like a constant. Okay, this is, there are some auxiliary methods to enums. I don't know if you know, but there is a Ruby gem called enumerate it. I really like it. It is a Ruby gem, right? It is a Rails gem because it requires active support, so it's a Rails gem. Okay, anyway, we have some auxiliary methods to enum, like names. Names returns a array of string. So the first time I run this code, the time of color is a string. The class of it is a string. All the possible types of color is a string. The class of color is string, and the first run of the code, its value is a string with the content red. But I can also parse the color to, for example, I receive a value from user and I can parse it to an enum. If I inspect all the types that this variable can accept, it is color. This is another method. Basically, it's looped through the array of colors. Sorry. We have some methods here. Is a color to have some parts of the code, and we can parse. We can't parse a string to symbol, but we can parse a string to enum. But if you are parsing, it means that we are parsing for example, a data from the user, and we can parse. You can imagine. We can think about what all the kinds the user can type here. So we can't do this kind of validation in compiling time. We can't do this kind of validation while compiling. We have to protect this kind of code while while running it, right? We can also use method overloading with enums. For example, here, if I Once more, I don't have to say what type it is returned, because true is a boolean, false is a boolean. And if I receives a color, any kind of color, it will return true. If I receive anything else, it will return false. Here are some examples: color red true, and a string false, and another enum is false as well. But remember, guys, we can't do method overloading with values. Here is an example of color red. It is a value. It is not a type of variable, a class, anything like that. Here, if you do that, your code it won't compile, right? Here is a error message. Red is not a type, it is a constant. So I've been speaking all the time about performance. Maybe you have noticed, but I talked about performance for the developer, right? Ruby is created with to be easy to developers. To Ruby, Elixir, these language are easy. This language will increase your performance while typing, while coding, this kind of thing. And I will show you only one chart about performance in Crystal, because I think performance for the developer is better than performance for language. Of course, sometimes we need performance for the language, like that example of SciPy using Fortran, C, and Python all together. But this is what I think. This is why I came to Ruby and started developing it. And if this chart, I have to say, this chart is using the language, the framework, as if there is no I/O problems, right? They are not looking at a database, they are not looking to Redis or any place. They are just receiving a request and outputting the content. And Crystal is the top one with Aurora.cr, and Go is the second one, and Ruby, okay, you see that. And that's all, guys. Do you have any questions? Anything you want to see and want to say? Cadê? So, any questions? Oh, chat. Any questions? No?
Opa. Tá me vendo?
Yep. Sim, tô.
Cara, tem uma pergunta, tipo, hoje a gente usa Rails porque é produtivo e fácil de fazer as coisas e tudo mais. E ele é suficientemente rápido para a maioria das coisas que a gente precisa fazer e tal. E aí surgiram alternativas como o Elixir. E aí agora tu tá falando de Crystal. Eu queria saber se tu tem alguma ideia de... Por exemplo, hoje então eu imagino quando eu tivesse um problema que eu precisaria fazer algo paralelo e muito rápido e que pudesse fazer concorrentemente e tudo mais, eu usaria Elixir, por exemplo. E aí eu queria saber de ti se tu tem alguma opinião, tipo, em algum contexto seria melhor usar Crystal, em outro Elixir, ou qual que é o objetivo de cada uma, assim, se tu tem alguma ideia.
Certo. Cara, o primeiro objetivo que eu posso ver sobre o Crystal é porque ele é um Ruby compilado. Então ele vai ser um pouco mais rápido do que o Ruby. Por exemplo, eu tinha aquele Toy Project que eu falei para vocês, aquele código do deck, da classe deck, ele estava em Ruby e eu migrei ele para Crystal muito fácil. Eu tive que copiar e colar o código, copiar e colar, copiar o arquivo e colar em outro .rb.cr, copiar e colar o teste, e eu tive que adicionar todas as validações de tipo, porque eu não queria nenhum problema, eu adicionei todo lugar que tinha método e aceitava valores, eu coloquei validação e mudei a sintaxe do teste. E pronto, eu já estava em Crystal. Demorou o quê? Uns 3 dias. Então, em 3 dias, um projeto pequeno, diga-se de passagem, ele já estava rápido o suficiente para, tipo, você colocar um projeto pequeno, não era um projeto tão grande. Mas, tipo assim, Crystal tem um problema porque ele não é paralelo. Ele é... esqueci o nome. Ele não é paralelo. Ele dá aquela impressão de que é paralelo. Esqueci o nome.
Concorrente?
Isso, exatamente. Valeu. Ele é concorrente. Então, teoricamente, o teu código, apesar